Hey, Charlie. How did Obi-Wan help Luke during the Battle of Yavin?
Tell me.
He gave him sound advice.
Get out.
Hey,
Chuck the book.
We're getting to the end of the book here, folks.
Wanna buy some dead stick? Roger, roger.
Jedi.
That's no moon. It's a space station.
Always a pleasure to meet you.
And my allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy!
You failed your Highness. I'm a Jedi.
Hello, explorers, and welcome to the only international Star Wars podcast covering almost half the world, but only 0.5% of the galaxy. I'm Charlie, and as always, thank you for joining us wherever you are in the Star Wars universe.
Yes, and welcome to Explore the Force, where we cover all things Star Wars. I'm Jimmy, and as always, welcome back or welcome along if you are new.
And last but by no means least, I'm Charlie, and if you are joining us today for episode 132, and if you get a chance, don't forget to give us a cheeky rating, like, share, and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Yes. Jimmy, how are you doing, buddy? I feel like it's been ages since I've seen you. I know it was only last week. Fill me in.
It does, but everything's been so quiet on our personal socials. But yeah, good. But the time this comes out, we'll be on. Well, we are technically on Thanksgiving break, so I get 9 days off, I think. So, I can't complain. How about you?
I'm doing good. I spent the day yesterday being a princess at a local cosmetic store for a little launch party that they did, and I had lots of fun.
Charlie,
lots of lovely kids.
Don't you spend every day being a princess?
Oh, stop. You're too kind. You are too kind. And tomorrow I am taking my wonderful, wonderful girlfriend to see Wicked for good.
Oh, yeah.
She's very, very excited. I'm also very excited. We're going to do, I don't know if you've seen the video trend of like us before Wicked and us after Wicked. So there will be lots of tears. Very
cool. You guys dressing up?
A themed look, I think,
but
will
not
be
full on.
No, none of us have the dresses. But I'm going to be honest, I really want to be
silent.
Glinda.
You'd be a good Glinda. The G is silent. You're welcome.
Okay, enough yapping about Wicked. This is a Star Wars podcast. We've got Star Wars things to talk about.
That's right. We've got a lot of Star Wars things to talk about.
Oh, goodness, so much, guys. So you know how we had lots of news last week? I feel like we've got twice as much this week. Anyway, my fun fact for this week. Did you know that in Revenge of the Sith, General Grievous's cough is canonically caused by Mace Windu crushing his chest with the Force during the Clone Wars microseries in 2003? George Lucas himself approved this connection, making that cough more than just a character quirk.
That's pretty cool. We really need a backstory on General Grievous, like a full-on book series, something. His creation.
I would argue, even as a kid, to me, he was one of the most interesting kind of creatures, beings, things in Star Wars. Like not human, but also not an alien, but also not a droid. Like it.
Not even cyborg doesn't work. Like there's nothing that really. I don't feel like there's any category of science fiction robot droid thing that he really seems to fall in. So it's a good fun fact, though.
Thank you. You never know. We might one day get some actual proper backstory. However, shall we disappear into our Force encounters?
For my
Absolutely.
is the Force.
So my Force encounter, I have had the busiest week, yet somehow managed to do absolutely nothing Star Wars. So my Force encounters this week is the collection of merchandise that you can see. If you're not watching our YouTube or the Spotify video version, switch over now so that you can behold my stuff.
It's good stuff.
This is a very small selection of my much loved and much adored Jar Jar Binks collection, and I will get into more of this as we get into the main show later, but it's very on brand, very on theme. I am a huge collector of anything Jar Jar Binks, weird, obscure, specifically, like I've got a Koosh up there that I got for my birthday. Haven't played with one of those since I was a kid.
Don't lie, you played with it last week.
Might have done. There's like some of the cups, like the promotional cups from Pepsi in the corner here. This one is a particular favorite. The arms are posable. I have
awesome.
the big and the small versions of the cuddly Jar Jar Binks. Believe it or not, there is a large version of this one somewhere. I have yet to find it. And I have 2 Funko Pops over there. I've got the 50th anniversary figure up there. And believe it or not, I have even more, but as we're still in the process of unpacking and the office is being done at the start of December, so I actually cannot wait to show you guys the rest of it. I feel like there's so much. I've got more t-shirts, I've got mugs, I've got so much.
You should make a Jar Jar Binks t-shirt quilt. It'd be pretty sick, wouldn't it?
That would be really sick.
Yeah,
there is currently a vintage Jar Jar Binks. I feel crazy saying something from 1999 is vintage. That makes me uncomfortable. Jar Jar Binks like blanket on eBay at the moment, and I need it. Need it.
We get to ask Santa. 'Tis the season almost.
Almost.
Let me try to think. Yeah, it's weird too because I was sitting there thinking like I felt like I've had a really busy week with school. Things are kind of winding down for this, and then we get 3 weeks when we go back. But this past week, the week before Thanksgiving, I was on door duty, so I got to kind of like the kids walk in, they have their lanyards on, their IDs, and this kid stops me on the first day. He's like, "Hey, what's your favorite Star Wars film?" I was like, "What?" Like, and I was like, and I looked down, I was like, "Oh, I don't have sleeves on, so maybe he saw my tattoos." Then I remembered we had done some state testing, and he was in my room. It was just random. So me and him had a little chat. He was asking me some questions, and then, I asked him a few questions, and it was kind of a fun little talk. I figured out he's a freshman at the high school I'm working at now. It was just kind of fun to have a conversation, and you always get a weird response when kids are always like, "What's your favorite movie?" And I always say Solo, and they're always like, "What?" And he's like, "Oh, cool." So that was kind of fun to have someone not respond in a way that makes me feel like a bad Star Wars fan.
So short and sweet Force Encounters this week, and I think it's time to head over to Batu for the news because there is so much to get through.
The people in this crowd will soon be among almost 40,000.
For those who are among the 900 with news media or promotional tickets, this sneak preview probably will be the only chance to see The Empire Strikes Back.
All right, our first bit of news is about the Empire Magazine exclusive for the upcoming Mandalorian and Grogu movie.
Appropriately, it was a small but mighty feature in Empire Magazine, and yet was absolutely packed with details about the story, characters, and even the big screen. Speaking to Jon Favreau directly, he started by discussing the film's release in IMAX. He said, "Going all the way up to the tall IMAX format was really exciting. I'm going to be honest, I've never actually seen a film in IMAX, and I'm quite excited for the thought of my first IMAX film being a Star Wars film. Super excited to see giant baby Yoda, and it's been 3 years since we've seen these guys on our TV screens."
For real?
Yeah, it's been 3 years, and we have not had a Star Wars film since The Rise of Skywalker.
It's too long. It's too long. You haven't ever seen a movie on the IMAX?
No.
Oh my goodness, you're in for a treat. You're in for a treat. Favreau then goes on to discuss the central relationship between the Mandalorian and Grogu. He says he has a different set of priorities in this movie. The Mandalorian, he says this specifically, the Mandalorian has changed his priorities. One of the last things we say in season 3 is like, I don't want to go out there and just be a hired gun. I want to work for the good guys. Cool.
It's nice to know that they're keeping that kind of what they were doing in season 3 directly impacts the stories being used in season, like not season 4. We'll get into that the movie. Favreau also spoke about Zeb's role, which again, I know you're going to be super excited for. I'm super excited for. The character is making his way onto the big screen, and Favreau said, "We really get to have fun with him. He's such a compelling character. Even if you've never seen the Rebels, between the voice, the swagger, and the physical ability." And Zeb goes even further than that. His role allows us to tie in what's happening with Ahsoka.
Oh,
I know. It feels like it's such a small article, and he drops so many bombs into this. I feel like
he
we could
can't
do a
help
whole
himself
episode.
though.
No, he can't.
Favreau cannot help himself. You remember he was being interviewed one time before Mando and Grogu came out for something. May have been like the Jungle Book, and he was like, "Ask me about Star Wars. Ask me about Star Wars." And the guy didn't ask him about Star Wars. And we're like, "What are you doing?" He just wants to talk Star Wars.
All he wants to do is tell us things that he probably shouldn't be telling us.
He is awesome. I got a fun little story about him after I finish my little piece of news, but yeah, he is awesome.
I definitely think this is going to be the cherry on top of the cake for this era of Star Wars. Like, I feel like this is the bow to tie it all together. And Favreau makes it clear that even if you're a hardcore fan or someone brand new, he wants this film to be accessible to every kind of fan. He said, Star Wars is always about progression and growth and characters evolving, sometimes for the good, sometimes for the bad. It's about apprenticeship. It's about one generation teaching the next. There's more growth that happens over the course of the film.
That sounds awesome. Like on the film and in real life, you know, if this is truly one of those films where you don't need to know anything about Mandalorian, you don't need to know anything about Rebels to go into this and just enjoy it, that's going to be awesome. Because then that just gets people interested in all the side stuff. Go watch Mando, go watch Rebels, and just get a whole new fandom. That'll be great. This last little gem from the article was really had our ears pricking up, and I actually looked for this and I couldn't find if this is true or not. But I didn't look at the article. So Favreau very casually reveals we were planning on doing a 4th season. I'd actually written all that. I still have season 4 sitting on my desk here. And when the film came out, those plans changed, and the big screen demanded a different approach in regards to the Mando and Grogu. He finished saying it's structured around a movie structure as opposed to a serialized weekly television show. So there's a larger throw into the whole thing. So do you think he took season 4 and he made it into the movie, or this is what I was confused by this? I think, yeah, like I was kind of confused when I was reading this. Does this mean like we're getting a season 4? Because some people are reporting, hey, we get season 4. And then some people are reporting that, like we thought from the get-go, that season 4 is now this movie. So I don't know how to interpret it, I guess. What do you think?
So I remember when the rumors came out, when the leakers started talking about that there was going to be a Mandalorian and Grogu movie. And I remember so many people and so many clickbait sites being like, it's season 4 as a TV series. They're going to make it into a movie. And I remember digging and digging and digging to try and get to the bottom of this. And at the time, as far as I could see, the movie and season 4 were two different things. And I do actually think we are still going to get season 4. I do not think Jon Favreau would go. I understand that this is like a big thing for him. I don't think he would go to all of that effort, and all of the pair of them wouldn't go to all of that time and all of that effort for season 4 to not have it. But I think the movie is still something different. I think it has to be. I think if they just did season 4 and turned it into a movie, that wouldn't be accessible to new fans, because you would need all 3 seasons of context and Rebels and Ahsoka.
It makes me wonder. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but like, you know, he talks about it being brand new, but then he also talks about Zeb tying into what's going on with Ahsoka. So I'm like, well, if you haven't seen Ahsoka, you know, are you going to pick that on that? I mean, it's always, movies always benefit the person who knows the most going into it, I think.
Yeah.
All the side stuff, the books and all those things. Like there's going to be little jokes and there's going to be references, and half the crowd's going to go, oh, you know, or oh, you know, just kind of something from Rebels or something from Ahsoka. And, but I really, truly hope that it's legitimately a movie where you could just I could take my nephews and go, let's go see Star Wars together, fellas. Sit down, we can watch it, and their minds will be blown, and we'll have 2 little Padawans on my hands. So the fun story about Jon Favreau, and it's a little bit weird to me that Filoni wasn't in on this, but probably working Ahsoka stuff, but editing. But at Chicago, when they first announced Mandalorian and they showed us previews, this was back in Chicago, kind of set this precedent where they showed it on this big screen out in the main lobby area. And that's what kind of everyone that was watching. Everyone was so mad at Anaheim because they weren't doing that. But they, you know how they black out the cameras or they black out the feed on YouTube if you're watching it. Favreau actually showed it twice. Once just to us in the thing, and then the second time is like, is everybody back on YouTube? And the people are like, oh yeah. He goes, all right, roll the clip again. And so he played it again. And I think that everyone that was watching on YouTube got to watch it, and that was because of him. And then him and Dave just sitting there chilling. It was like two buddies talking Star Wars. Those two should make a podcast. Just give us once a month to sit down and talk Star Wars. That would be nuts. So, but anyways, it was a highlight of that trip, and that was an incredible adventure. My first celebration. It was amazing. But I just remember those two and how much they loved talking Star Wars together. And it was infectious. So it was very cool.
When I was at Celebration in London, I was wandering about the halls, and all of a sudden I heard cheering, and I turned around, and it was Favreau and Filoni just sat on like the side stage, just chatting, just the two of them. All I saw was like the cowboy hat in the distance and screaming. And I just stood there for like 20 minutes in like a relatively small crowd of people as well. Like it felt like a really intimate, really kind of personal thing just for the people who happened to be passing by. But they were saying some fantastically interesting stuff. Just two friends just talking about Star Wars like they were sat like at a bar together, or
yes, I'm telling
just
you,
in the car.
Those two could make a podcast, and I know they're super busy, but those two would just sit down once a month and record 45 to, I mean, I know they couldn't probably just talk 45 minutes, but give them a topic, bam, let them chat it out. You know, it doesn't even have to be about what they're working on. Make it stuff that's not anything about that. Just some random topips. I'm telling you, listen to those two talk. Like you said, it blows your mind how much they love it and how much they know. And it'd be exciting. I'd tune in, that's for sure.
Oh, I absolutely would as well. So it has been a week of awards and nominations in Star Wars. We're going to start off with Andor's creative team. They have been nominated for a Royal Television Society Award for visual effects. A huge congratulations to that team. The award is immensely deserved. I feel like I haven't quite processed it yet. It's not time for me to watch season 2 again, but when I do, from what I can remember of the craziness of it, absolutely deserved. All of it.
Oh, everything it wins, it deserves. It's phenomenal.
And on top of that, it has been a huge week for our favourite show, Skeleton Crew, as well, with no less than 17 children's and family Emmy nominations for both the show as a whole, individual episodes, and for Ravi and Jude Law individually. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, we got to meet Ravi and got to talk to him. That kid is nuts. Like, he's so much energy, so into it. I mean, we saw a clip of him a couple of days ago, flipping off a truck onto a pad. So now he's a stunt man. He's directing. He's producing films, and the kid's like 15 years old. Bonkers.
I feel like I'm only just hitting my stride, and I've just turned 31. Like, please, Ravi, please.
He needs to slow down. He's making us all look bad. So,
but yeah, immense congratulations to everybody. We have got our fingers, toes, and our lightsabers crossed.
Absolutely. All right. This next little bit of news caused me a little bit of confusion when I was researching it. But Pot of Rebellion interviewed executive producer, and Pot of Rebellion is like Vanessa Marshall, Taylor Gray, Tia Sakar. Like, it's the voice actors of Rebels.
Wow.
Yeah, so they have their own podcast. So they obviously they're going to have access to people that no one else can. They had executive producer and writer for Rebels, Henry Gilroy, on this week, and got an absolute gems. Like, he just talked about, I mean, it was like he just did not care about the stuff that was coming out of his mouth. We won't go into all of it. You should listen to it, though. It's bonkers. I listened to it. I listened to it twice. On budget for Rebels, Gilroy said that the show only had half the budget of the Clone Wars. but it didn't affect the visuals. I mean, yeah, I know that people had some issues with the animation and stuff like that, but I think you get used to it. Rebels is beautiful. I would argue that some of the most compelling writing and storytelling. I think that's the thing too, is like once you get pulled into the story, I don't think people even notice that animation anymore. Do you know what I
No.
mean? Like, because it was different. Like, I don't like the lightsabers in it and things like that, but and you know, just minuscule stuff. But then you start getting these impactful stories, and I think that you just forget all about it. But that is kind of crazy that it had that small of a budget. But here's the big one. On Sabine Wren being a Jedi in Ahsoka. Now, this has been causing waves. It was absolutely not the plan. We really felt not only did it step on Ezra's story, but it was a retread. Like we already did this. The idea of Sabine training as a Jedi when she is already this fantastic warrior of her own type, we felt like this is overkill. So he goes on and talk about this a bit, where he says that, I don't remember if it was season 3 or season 4, what it was. They had the discussion, I think probably with the Darksaber stuff. Are we going to make her force sensitive? Are we going to expose that? And again, he gave the reasons that unanimously they said, no, we're not doing that. Stepping on Ezra. It's, you know, she's already everything that he'll go on to argue a little bit later that he thinks it kind of takes away from her. That making her a Jedi kind of is like cheats her a little bit for everything she's done. Do you know what I mean? Kind of similar concept to, you know, conversation where you like when Rey was a nobody. Does that make sense? Kind of like, you know, now she's a Palpatine, that's why she's so powerful, kind of thing. And I don't want to get into all that nonsense, but I was really, really, really surprised that he said this on air. And I will warn everybody too, if you go looking for this podcast, he's on twice. He's on back to back. I watched it. I listened to the second one, and I was like, oh, he took it back. Like they must have cut it all out because they got in trouble. And then I realized he had been on the previous episode. So then I went and listened to that one, and he says this all. He just drops it all right there. Says that it was absolutely not there. He has no idea why they did it. I mean, it was almost like he's kind of criticizing the Ahsoka crew. I thought. I'm very surprised. I don't know about you, Charlie, but like usually like people like tiptoe around these things. They try to get their opinions in there without offending anyone. But I feel like he just said, "Nah, this is dumb." I mean, then you're talking about Dave Filoni.
So I think it's actually really interesting. I feel like quite a lot of Star Wars stars, especially post the era of John Boyega, being like, hey, what you did with Finn sucked, and being really open about that. Like there was a quote from Oscar Isaac a couple of weeks ago where when he was asked if he would return to Star Wars, he said, yeah, as long as Disney doesn't get fascist. Like, so just openly like, okay, this is how I feel about it. And I feel like some of the people who worked in previous Star Wars before sort of what's been happening now suddenly feel like that maybe they can be a bit more honest about how they feel about these things. Like obviously because he was with people that he's maybe more comfortable with, obviously like actual stars of the show that he's written for and that he's worked with, I wonder if he maybe forgot that he was doing like a podcast that's going to go out to Star Wars fans and listeners, and it just ended up being a conversation between friends where you're a little bit too honest after like 2 glasses of wine.
Charlie, I think you nailed it. I think that they all just, you could tell they're all very close. They have these stories, and I think he just forgot that there was a microphone recording what he said, and he wasn't bashful of it, because in the second episode, right after that, and they're not numbered, I can't remember exactly how it goes, but they ask him if there's anything he would change, and he goes, "Yeah, Sabine being a Jedi." You know, like he came back on it. He doubled down on it the next episode. So it wasn't like he. But yeah, I think when he said it, I was shocked. I mean, I just thought, oh my goodness, I can't believe he just said this. But we'll see what happens. Let's see if he works in Star Wars anymore.
Well, we'll see. We'll see if the mouse takes him. Anyway, yeah. Everyone's been sharing stories of things that shouldn't happen and things that didn't happen and things that could have happened in Star Wars this week. During his appearance at SpaceCon, Daniel Logan has said that the whole of the Clone Wars Season 7 was originally based around Boba Fett. I have paraphrased this quote down because it's quite a long one. I'd recommend going and looking up. I think there's some clips available, and I think there's some transcribed versions as well. He said, "It was about to be the story of Boba Fett and how he got his new armor. There was a story arc of how Boba Fett got his dent in his helmet and how he killed Cad Bane, but then Cad Bane ends up surviving and going against Boba Fett later on in the book of Boba Fett." I remember when I started reading through these scripts, my eyes just filled with water because it was exactly as a fan what I wanted to see and what I thought the fans deserved to see of the backstory of Boba Fett. And I don't know if those episodes will ever be released. I feel like there's so much for Clone Wars in the archives that we will just never see the light of day.
I've seen you've probably seen this. There's that footage of the showdown between him and Cad Bane and how they gets a dent. That's been talked about for years. I had no idea that it was going to be centered around Boba. That's really interesting to me. Like the fact that, I mean, assuming they thought they were going to have more and more years to continue to do this. Like they didn't have to do the season 7 we got could have been season 10 or whatever. But yeah, this is crazy. That would have been really cool to see little Boba Fett, learning, and we've got a couple of things of him, a couple episodes of him in there with his gang and stuff like that. But that's pretty cool. I wonder if they'd ever, like you said, if they'd ever release any of that stuff. I mean, I know that footage of the raw footage of the fight between Cad and Boba Fett is out there, but I'm not sure about that's the first time I've ever heard that the whole season was wrapped up. I just assumed it was a three episode arc like everything else in Clone Wars.
I will be one of the first people to jump to the defense of the Book of Boba Fett as a TV series, but obviously I'm coming at that from I don't rank the original trilogy and Boba Fett's first appearance as highly as I do the prequels. We'll get into that a little bit later. And I've not really watched all of Clone Wars. I've watched bits. I've watched season 7 and I've watched bits. I know it's terrible of me. I am a bad Star Wars fan. I really should properly watch it. But I don't know. Maybe that would have worked. Maybe it would have changed the entire landscape of season 7. I'm really, really curious. Get me in those Disney archives right now.
Yeah, it would be interesting. My goodness, you've never seen all. I didn't watch Clone Wars until it was out for a long time. So it was on Netflix, I think, when I watched it. For all of our comic book fans like myself, and speaking of the Clone Wars, we get a new group of clone troopers named Cool, Hank, Rice, and Charger. First, I thought it was my nephews. So we got Rice and Charger in there. Have been revealed. They'll make their debut next month in the Bad Batch Rogue Agent series. The designs for these troopers are really cool. And Charlie's showing it up there. Yeah, it looks got like a hodgepodge of troopers here, all different color uniforms for different squadrons, different battalions that they're coming from. This is a Dark Horse series, I believe. I know I have it. The Rogue Agents one, but I'm not sure. Once I get this, I'll let you guys know. This hasn't come out yet, obviously.
Please do. Jimmy, I really enjoy your comic book reviews that you can find on our YouTube channel if you would like to listen to them. Thank you, please, and thank you.
I owe everybody 2, by the way. Jedi Knights 9 just came out. I forgot to do 8, so I'm getting on
behind.
I am behind.
Not good.
Yeah, so those are really cool photos. You always love clones, and I know there's so many people out there who love the clones, and just to get more clones and characters, just like in the Bad Batch series, all those clones we got to meet and things like that. It's crazy to me how they can make them all be exactly the same, but all of them can be so different. It's one of the impressive things about that series and about the Clone Wars. But we also got last week we heard that John Boyega wants to return to Star Wars, but he has some conditions and one non-negotiable. Finn and Poe's story deserves a theatrical home. Me and Oscar are very stubborn, and we believe the bromance should only be on the big screen. Boyega emphasized that any reunion would need a movie-level scope and a strong script, and if the project ever moves forward, he already knows who else he wants beside him. It has to be a movie and obviously a great script. And I already spoke to Jonas today and said, Jonas, you must join Poe and Finn on their adventures. So if I get those combinations, who knows? So he wants Chewbacca. If you don't know who Jonas is, it's Jonas Swotimo, I believe. I think that's how you say it. But that's the new guy who plays Chewbacca and any other Wookiee that's really out there anymore. But
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, Boyega seems like he's been reckless. You know what I mean? Like I think, like you said, he's kind of like he just doesn't care.
Yeah.
He just does
But I
not.
respect it. I really respect that he knows what he wants and he cares so much about Finn as a character that he's being incredibly specific about what he wants to portray Finn as and what he wants to portray Finn in. And I think it's fair to say that throwing Finn away for like a TV, not to minimize the TV series. I understand they have like the same level of importance as the films, but I think specifically for John Boyega, for everything he's been through with Finn, it needs to be that big story. It needs to be something that's meaningful, especially because, like, again, I'm criticizing the sequel trilogy. What's happening here? They didn't do Finn very good as a character. Like,
Dirty.
it sucked. That's one of the things that I genuinely do dislike about the sequel trilogy is the way they handled Finn's story. It could have been so amazing. It could have been so different than what it was. And I respect that he stands there and he's like, no, I want to do it with my Wookiee friend and I want to do it with my best boyfriend / best friend co-pilot.
Yeah, they really want that storyline.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it seemed pretty. I mean, both of them have talked about it, which is, I mean, you know, they spent 3 movies together, thinking about the roles, thinking about the characters, thinking about where they would go. So they had no plan, and I don't want to harp on this too long, but I mean, it goes from Poe and Finn, Poe and Rose, you know what I mean? Poe and Jana, like it's just, or you know, Finn and Jana, you know, it's just so all over the map with that kid. John has I think he has every right to be upset with the way he got kind of tossed around as a side character in the films. So, but anyways.
If you thought we were done with the Kylo Ren Adam Driver stuff, you are wrong. Popping it just keeps coming. It just keeps coming and coming and coming. Popping this little quote in for our Reylo fans, and just to make sure everyone's getting their weekly fix for Kylo Ren, don't you worry. Adam Driver has been interviewed as part of Star Wars Insider's 10th anniversary special for The Force Awakens. This hardback copy issue contains over 100 pages of behind-the-scenes insights for all 3 of the sequels movies, and a surprising little insight from our favourite dark-haired villain. Adam Driver discussed just why he wanted to take on a role like Kylo Ren in the first place, and the intrigue, it turns out, started with the mysterious mask that hid Ben Solo from the world. He said, wearing a mask is quite a challenging thing. The prospect was very scary and terrifying, so it wasn't immediately a yes. Actually, I thought about it quite a bit, and even though it was a no-brainer, I really didn't want to take it lightly. And beyond Ren's connection to the Star Wars world, Driver was fascinated by the physicality of the character and how much of Ben Solo's personality had been shaped, almost subsumed even, by the costume that was Kylo Ren. There are so many layers to Kylo Ren. Having a girlfriend who cosplays Kylo Ren, I can confirm there are many layers to this costume. It is horrific. And he said it was interesting to find out who he was with the mask on or with the mask off, and that was part of our initial conversations. There's something empowering for someone to completely hide themselves in a mask that's so intimidating. And now I'm going to go cry in a corner because I'm still so deeply sad about the cancellation of the hunt for Ben Solo.
Yeah, it's still kind of sore. It's cool that he was worried about that, though. And we've talked a lot about, you know, we've had Brendan on the show and how hard it is to kind of like get your emotions and everything like that in there. And then he's taking it to a whole nother level with, you know, talking about how the mask on, the mask off. What do you like behind it? It's, you know, it's kind of cool. Yeah. And our last bit of news, Lesyle Hedland was interviewed earlier this week by the Wrap.com, I believe, and said that fans' criticism of the Acolyte were completely valid, that people's reactions, it's usually their reaction to their own reaction, and has shown, and the show was always at risk for what it was doing. This article is really good. You can find it, the Wrap.com. I believe Adam Chitwood is the guy who interviewed Leslie, sorry, and she's pretty open and honest. It's a lot about her production company. Was it Shoot to Midnight, I believe, and they're trying to give voices and just talk about how things have changed, giving certain people an opportunity that probably won't get it now, just because of the environment here in the United States. And I'm not trying to get political, but things have changed. I kind of dive into this a little bit. We have a video up on our YouTube channel, 6 minutes, kind of dives into this. But she talks about, if people didn't like it, that's fine. That's them. And then she also said that she believed that some of these more powerful YouTubers and streamers actually influenced Lucasfilm. Like I think she set a dangerous precedent because you're giving these, I don't want to say any people's names out there, but there's a group of them. And I even talked about it in my video how I got sucked into the negativity when I first came back into Star Wars before Chicago and things like that. And I found the wrong channels. But she says she thinks that it might be to the point now, because of the way society is and how people view their media, that the stuff that these streamers are making is going to be more important than the movies themselves. I pray and I hope that never, ever happens. But it's an interesting story. Wrap.com. You can go read it. And then like I said, we have a quick 6-minute video up just about this article in itself.
I think it's interesting to see her being so sort of transparent about it and sort of being aware that she is correct. Like, it sounds like an odd sentence to say, but she is absolutely correct. It's people reacting to their own reactions of, oh, I don't like this. I don't like this. And it, I think she's being, I think she's trying to be like, okay, if you didn't like it, if you legitimately did not like it, that is fine. And I think that is fine. But if you didn't like it because of who the main character was, or the story of the Coven of the Witches, you know what I mean? Like things like that. Like there are some things that she kind of gets into. And I think that's what she was kind of trying to say with the streamers, because most of them complained about that stuff a lot. So, well, now that I'm absolutely exhausted from all of that news, I'll take us into our intro, shall we?
It's just a simple jump to hyperspace and we're there. What's so tricky about that?
Plenty. Can't plot a direct course to Kessel. You might wanna buckle up, baby.
I know that we are coming up to the 10th anniversary of The Force Awakens, and don't worry, we've got a whole month of sequels content coming your way. But for this week, Jimmy and I wanted to talk about something I don't ever think we've actually discussed before.
No, I didn't like the prequels when they came out. I was one of those hateful Star Wars fans. I was angry about Star Wars for a very long time after the prequels. Even close to the release of angry about the prequels almost up until the release of the sequels. And when the Force Awakens come out, I think about a year or so, kind of getting geared up towards it. So yeah, we'll talk about that.
So I didn't know this about you until a couple of days ago, and I have been genuinely fascinated to get into this discussion topic with you. So let me set the scene. It is May 19th, 1999, and the release day of The Phantom Menace. I need to show you some of these photos, Jimmy. Here is a picture from of people camping out on the streets, waiting for the cinemas to open and the film to come out. Again, if you're not watching our video version, you need to, because these are some nostalgia photos. We've got lightsabers, we've got sun loungers.
Just chilling. I always wonder what they do with that stuff once they get in. They just leave it?
I think they chuck it. I think they just leave it. I also think we can spot my my Jar Jar Binks collection Holy Grail in the back there, the inflatable Jar Jar Binks chair.
Yeah, there it is. I see it.
There it is. If there's also the Padme one next to it as well. So if anybody has one of those for sale, please let me know, because I need it. I need it. I need it for my bedroom in my lovely house.
Record from that chair.
The world is still buzzing from Y2K panic. I'm 4 years old. I would like to point this out now. I am 4 at this point. Jimmy, for the class, how old were you?
Probably 22. I graduated in 1994, so this is 5 years later. So you're looking at 2, 4, somewhere in that range. 22, 23. I'd spent time in the Army. I was out of the Army, I think, because I was actually working at a big time. It's called what is it called? Oh, Cedar Point. It's this massive amusement park
Yeah,
in
no.
Ohio. So in Sandusky, like if you've seen Tommy Boy, the movie Sandusky, that's the town that
Oh,
he's from.
nice.
Yeah. So
New metal is probably blasting on every Now That's What I Call Music CD, and you might have just spent the morning feeding quarters into a payphone to let your friends know that you secured tickets. AOL is asking you if you've got mail, and Star Wars fan sites are running on dial-up speeds and breaking with how many people are using them, and collectors are already lining up at Toys R Us for those shiny Episode 1 action figures. Here is a legitimate photo.
man, those are the days. Like you go in, like I get so sad when I walk into Walmart or walk into like Target, and there's like just this over here on like the side with the red. Just that's all there is. Like that's all the Star Wars, and you got rows and rows and rows of Star Wars toys. Phenomenal.
Absolutely phenomenal.
So, all right. Picture this. You walk up to the theater. Maybe it's a sticky floor multiplex. Maybe it's a mall cinema sandwich between a Sam Goody and a KB Toys. You were nostalgic on this one. The energy is electric. Fans in Jedi robes, people quoting the trailers word for word, grown adults arguing over whether Darth Maul is going to live past movie 1. This is the moment fans have been waiting 16 years for, and depending on who you are or who you were, the moment hit very differently. For some, it was pure magic. For others, let's just say the early internet forums lit up fast. Today, we're falling headfirst like Maul into the hype, the backlash, and how two fans sitting here today walked into the same movie and walked out with totally different takes. Yeah, totally different takes, I think. So, I guess, were you able to have expectations at 4 years old, Charlie?
So I came to them a little bit later. I think I was 8 or 9 when I watched The Phantom Menace for the first time, but there was still it was still very much part of like the zeitgeist of Star Wars. Like it was still the biggest discussion topic. It was still kind of the most divisive thing at the time. So even though I wasn't there for the kind of cinema releases, by the time I watched them, I was already aware of the discourse behind them, which I think made it kind of super, super interesting to me. So what were your expectations? We'll start with The Phantom Menace and we'll go through that. What were your expectations going in to see The Phantom Menace? I'm assuming you went and saw it like on release day, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we went and saw it releases. Again, I was working at Cedar Point. I felt terrible saying this. I didn't even know it was coming out. Like we had been, so like you have to understand, I got out of the Army and I went to college and I didn't have a television. We didn't have social media like we do today. And my focus was getting like, I mean, I don't want to sound like a nerd or anything like that, but my focus was school and running cross country. And I never even thought about Star Wars for that much. So this is like kind of like a dark period of my life where, you know, I'm always a Star Wars fan. If Star Wars came on TV, I'd sit and watch it. But the guy who was in charge of our ride, the Power Tower, was like, "Hey, Star Wars." And I was like, "What?" You know, like, okay, let's go. So he got everybody tickets. We went in there in the droves. We went probably like midnight or something the night it came out. So my expectations, I had no idea. Didn't have a television for years that I sat and watched. So I didn't see any commercials. I didn't see any trailers. I didn't go see Meet Joe Black for the, you know, like people were doing and then leaving. I had no idea. So my expectations were none, which is weird to say.
No, I actually think we found something that we agree on. I didn't know what Star Wars was when somebody plunked, like when my mum plonked the VHS of The Phantom Menace in front of me and was like, "Do you want to watch this? I think you'd really enjoy it." And I sort of knew what Star Wars was, and I sort of knew that people at school were talking about The Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, but it felt so kind of distant for me because it really wasn't something that I was aware of. And then I watched it, and it kind of blew my mind.
I would imagine at your age.
See, I feel like I was the perfect age for it, and I have a lot of fascination for people in the kind of older generations who, like my partner Nick, he was aware and kind of in it in '99, and he'd watched all of the trailers and he was on all of the forums, and the hype was unending and excessive. And I really cannot understate, from the research I've done from this time, it was crazy town. 16 years since Return of the Jedi had come out,
All
And
we had were
I
books.
cannot. Yeah, all you guys had were books. That was it.
I mean, yeah, the guys on the ride, like the older guys, not being the oldest one there, he was super pumped for it. Like he knew what was going on. He had a lightsaber when we went, so he knew what was going on. I don't know if I'd call him like this massive Star Wars fan, but like I think he was dialed in a little bit more to what was going on in the country, in the world than I was. I just had other focuses.
No, I can completely respect that. So for you, it wasn't love at first watch. Talk to me about how you felt when you came out of the Phantom
Yes,
Menace.
and this has been the way I've been all my life. Is I walk out of the theater, and if I'm happy, I'm happy, and if I'm not, I'm not. Like it's that simple. Like no one's gonna. I mean, I'll find things I like, and I'll try to like movies more. But I just remember walking out, and I love the ending. Like that battles, the duel of the fates, saved that movie for me. Because otherwise, I was like, "What in the hell am I watching?" It didn't feel like Star Wars. I know we're gonna talk a little bit about that, but it just didn't feel like Star Wars to me. And it was too new looking to be Star Wars. And I know that's a weird gripe, but if they had explained things a little bit differently, and I think this was, I was one of the people who went back and saw the re-releases of the Star Wars films when they re-released them when he was testing out his stuff. So like I did love Star Wars, but this did not feel. I remember the Naboo starfighters just made me want to rage. Like these things are not Star Wars ships. Like what the hell is this? They're too shiny, they're too clean, and it really bothered me for some reason. And that's my biggest gripe. I thought it was cool. The pod racing scene was phenomenal. I mean, I moved to tears when the re-release, and I sit there and I'm like, I wish I would have appreciated this more. And I've always been someone who sometimes doesn't appreciate things when I'm in the moment. I'm kind of just in the moment, and then later on I'm like, oh, that was really cool. But yeah, I left the theater thinking, whatever. I would make fun of my friend because he really loved Darth Maul. I'm like, got a little cocky, got a little cut in half. That's the end of that idiot. We'll never see that fool again, right? Like, but yeah, I walked out of there like, meh. Didn't stop me though from going to the midnight showings of Attack of the Clones and the Revenge of the Sith. I mean, So not a fan. I just kept. I'm an optimistic person for the most part. I just kept hoping, and then of course Attack of the Clones happened. I was like, what the hell? But yeah, I was not happy, and I was pretty angry about Star Wars. One of those idiots who was like, "Oh, that's not Star Wars." Blah blah blah. You like that? You're an idiot. Like just everything I hate about Star Wars fans now, I embodied for years. And like I said before, too, when I got back into Star Wars, I got into these high-numbered Star Wars YouTube channels where they just spewed hate and stuff, and it didn't help me until I found some better people to listen to. So, and then thought, oh, like it's okay to like parts of it. You don't have to like all of it. And I was like an all or nothing kind of guy. So that's kind of where I was with it.
I find that so interesting. So do you think that, I feel like I'm just interviewing you now, but this is like something that really fascinates me. Did your disappointment in the Phantom Menace change how you felt about Attack of the Clones when that trailer dropped and that hype started again? Because I feel like people were willing to give it a second chance. I was like, I don't know, like 7, I guess, at the time when that came out, and then
2000,
wasn't aware.
2002? Was it 2001?
Yeah.
2002. Let's see,
Yeah, I'd have been 6 or 7.
I cannot remember where and when I saw this film. I know I went and saw it. There's a gap between the first one and the third one. Like I have a hard time remembering, but I know I went and saw it. I would never not go see, a movie. But no, I think it's so weird to me. It'll probably come to me. And it's actually, I knew we were going to talk about this, and I was trying to think, and it is just something that's like completely like erased from my mind. Where did I go see this film? Who was I with? But yeah, no, I was in it. Like it was Star Wars. The action's always good. I mean, even in the prequel, even in the Phantom Menace, like, the pod racing, the Duel of the Fates, like the big battle for Naboo, like that is incredible. it just, again, just didn't feel like this was Star Wars to me. Like, I didn't know if I wasn't a fan of the CGI and it just didn't look real enough to me at the time or what it was. But no, I know for a fact that I went and I saw Attack of the Clones, and then of course you get that Yoda, lightsaber moment, and it makes it all worth it. Sit through all that dialogue and, oh, I'm so in love with you.
I ate that up as
I'm
a kid,
sure
as a
you
preteen. That was amazing.
That's the thing too, is you talked about, one of the question is like, is your age? Yeah, like that wasn't for me. That wasn't my, you know what I mean? Like, that wasn't geared towards someone my age with my life experience. When then I was mad about it. Now I'm like, oh yeah, cool. Like, there are other people that like Star Wars besides myself. Like, I was just such a Richard, I was such a Richard about things. So
I've never heard it referred to like that. That's fantastic.
I don't want to say bad words on our show, but I was a Richard.
Well, no, that's true.
So
I feel like you've mentioned like the CGI stuff quite a lot. Do you think that was one of the biggest issues for you? Because when I watched it, and when I stopped watching The Phantom Menace on repeat for about 3 years because I didn't realize there were any other films. I thought it was just that one. The CGI blew my mind. I'd never seen anything like it. I thought it was incredible, and also I wasn't familiar with the original aesthetic of Star Wars because I'd not seen the original trilogy. I didn't watch the OT until I was like 13, 14 years old.
Yeah, I think that's people my age, all the grumpy Star Wars fans out there. I think that was I think that was a big problem for us as a group.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the idea is that like whiny Anakin and stuff like that didn't, that was whatever. It was just the CGI. Things just didn't look real to me. It does not have the same feel that the original trilogy had. Like, you could tell they were in these places when they filmed those movies. They were running through the redwood forest with cameras that they designed to capture the speeder bikes. They were out in the desert. They were, they're out in the freezing temperatures. They were in the, they were there. And then you sit there and you see what they did. And I know we didn't know this at the time, but you could tell these weren't practical sets. It's not, and it did bother me. It was too shiny and new. And I think that was some of my biggest issues. And the dialogue sometimes really bothered me a little bit too, especially in Attack of the Clones. So
I think I remember so vividly. Specifically, it was the CGI. It was this dude behind me, Jar Jar Binks, and it was midichlorians and Anakin's performance. Whether that was Jake Lloyd's performance or Hayden Christensen's performance, both I remember being heavily criticized. I'm going to throw up this very, very sweet picture of Jake Lloyd because he's a precious boy. Look at him go.
Yeah. Playing pod racer on the N64.
Oh, heck yes.
I so hope he comes back to Star Wars someday. He will be. Ahmad Best talks about this a lot when he's interviewed. To hate people now online is a joke. Like, you just open up your phone and you can hate whoever you want.
Yeah.
To create a website to destroy somebody personally took a lot of work in the 1990s. And people were doing this to Jake Lloyd, to Ahmad Best, to Hayden Christensen. The people were very upset with him. That's why the roar at Anaheim was so cool when he came out on stage, and he was overwhelmed. I think Jake Lloyd, everything he's been through, if he walked out on stage, on the live stage, people knew he was coming. Even people didn't know he was coming. That man it'd be like a 20-minute standing ovation probably.
Yeah.
Just for the fact that everyone feels terrible for what they did. I think a lot of people learned that the words that you say, like, not everyone learned that lesson, but some of us learned that, like, you don't have to like Jar Jar Binks, but you can't hate Ahmad Best for it. You don't have to like little Annie, but you can't hate on a kid that's as young as he is. Like, you can't do that. And I think you see that because I don't know, everyone loved Skeleton Crew, but they did not attack those children.
No.
You know what I mean? There was
There
no
was a
like these kids suck, and I mean I know the kids didn't suck; they were all really, really good. But I think we learned some stuff from that, and I think on my best coming out and saying how he almost killed himself from all this hate. People that have a heart, people have the conscience. I think it kind of like was like, hey, like easy. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to like the character, but you can't attack the person for it.
I think this is a really interesting time to bring up a really interesting piece of like documentation from this period of time called "The People versus George Lucas." This is a 2010 documentary slash comedy film by Swiss director Alexandre Philippe. The film combines filmmaker and celebrity interviews with fan films, mainly taken from the kind of 2010 online sort of Star Wars Uncut. People could submit films, and it all got turned into this one big documentary. And this is a compilation of about, I think it's like just over an hour long, of anybody and everybody, whether that's celebrity or whether that's it's majority male Star Wars fans as well. I would just like to say that. I'm not trying to like point a stick here.
No,
but
you're
specifically,
100%. It was us. It was white men my age.
It is men with some quite frightening rage towards a set of science fiction films that were originally written and created for children. And it's one of those things that I remember specifically when I was a kid. It was a bit funny to start off with. It was a bit like, oh, it's you think it's rubbish, I don't, whatever. And then I started getting like bullied for it in school. I started getting picked on and singled out because I liked Star Wars. And you see all of these people, especially in this docu-comedy, whatever it is, filled with so much rage, and then to not only experience that rage yourself, but then to translate that onto the actors, specifically children, is so deeply upsetting and unsettling, and probably not what George intended in the slightest. I know that from the behind the scenes that I've watched, the hours and hours and hours that there are, the prequels was like his piece de la resistance. Like this was like his magnum opus. This was the peak for him, and he was constantly fretting and worried that he wasn't going to get it right, and he was going to upset the fans, and he was going to do this, and this wasn't going to work. And the escalation of it over the years, and the fact that the first one came out in 1999 and people were still angry about it in like the late
People
the late
are
2010s.
still angry about it. I mean, there's still some really hateful people out there, and I don't think it has anything to do with Jar Jar Binks. You know what I mean? Like, there's just some people that have hate in their heart that, you know, like I don't like Rose Tico. I don't know what the purpose of her was, but I'm never going to say something crude or offensive to Kelly Marie Tran. She's just doing a job. You know, you've got to be able to separate that. And I do think that a lot of people, for the majority of the people like myself who were, and I don't know, and I honestly, I don't remember if I was like, oh, I hate Ahmad Best. Like, I don't remember. I know I said I hate Jar Jar Binks, but I know that I didn't say, hey, cover up his ears, please. That's, yeah. So, I just think a lot of people my age would disagree with you, not disagree with you specifically, Charlie, because like we know we say it's for kids. I don't think that Star Wars: A New Hope was for kids. Like it's like an adult movie. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, and then Empire Strikes Back. That was not for kids either. And neither was Return of the Jedi, even though you put the Ewoks in there. And I think that some of that rage and some of that stuff kind of comes from that, because I do think he made the prequels for kids up until Revenge of the Sith, because that gets real dark. But I don't believe that these movies were made for kids when they first came out. And I'm glad that they're that way now. But a children's show versus Star Wars, there's a big difference, and I get it, these adventure stories and things like that, but I have a hard time swallowing these were for kids. I think Jar Jar Binks, I think the prequels were for kids, but if he really meant that too, he would not have pushed Jar Jar out of the second and third film the way he did. Do you know what I mean? I know. And I still am not a fan of Jar Jar Binks, but the man who played him, Ahmad Best, I mean, he blew me away 2 years ago at Rebel Scum Con, just listening to him talk and the stories he told. And I'm just like, bro, like, dude, just, it's nuts that how well he's handled it. now how well he's handling it now, because at first he did not
Yes.
handle it well.
I have nothing but respect and adoration for Ahmed Best as an actor. Clearly what he went through was deeply difficult and deeply traumatic, and none of it should ever have been placed on him. Like, quite a lot of people were angry at George Lucas and said that George Lucas was this, and this for creating Jar Jar as a character. None of that needed to be put onto Ahmed Best, and if I ever met him, if I ever was afforded the chance to meet him, I would most likely just cry, because as a kid that struggled to have friends and struggled to socialize and struggled to feel accepted, I saw a lot of myself in Jar Jar, and he was my friend.
Yeah,
and he still is my friend.
Yeah, and that's awesome.
I'm not going to cry.
No, I think that's phenomenal, and that's the difference between me now and me then. I wouldn't have cared about that story from you. It wouldn't make me feel anything. Like, I'm so glad that Jar Jar was there for kids like yourself, and the fact that, he didn't hurt himself because of the hate and backlash that he got. It blows my mind. But yeah, I mean, I'm definitely glad, and like every movie is going to touch somebody differently. And I'm glad that you had Jar Jar to be your friend. Like, I mean, I had times in my life where I was lonely in college. I came into a group of everybody, and I mean, Buffy the Vampire Slayer kind of got me through those years. You know what I mean? Like, it's whatever it is that you hook onto and you latch onto, and what's important to you and what you like look forward to. And I know that sounds probably kind of weird, but yeah, I mean, that was, I felt like those were the friends I didn't have at college at first, this first year or so, because I really struggled a lot because keep myself isolated and stuff the way I did. So I get that 100%, and I'm glad that Jar Jar was there for you.
Did you ever feel like a pressure at any point to change to change your opinions, or to stay sort of set in the opinions that you did have? Like, do you feel like your negative opinions ended up being kind of over-validated by the community because there was such kind of this wave of hatred that it didn't really leave much space for you to change? Like, I've been a prequel lover since I first watched them. I've never really seen the issues that people see, but I understand that's because how I came to them is so different to the majority of kind of the original sets of Star Wars fans.
See, I don't think so. I don't think there's any pressure. I remember having a conversation with one of the guys at work, and I was just like, "Oh, there's no Star." I remember this conversation. I'm like, "Those aren't Star Wars," and he's like, "They're not that bad." I mean, he stood up to me, and I'm thankful for it. But I mean, I wasn't going to change my mind. It had to be. It was a process for me to like kind of come around to them. But no, I didn't feel like there was any pressure or anything like that to come around to. I just feel like I found the right people, and I should give these people credit. The guys at Collider, the men and women at Collider, before they cleaned house, Ken Knapsack and Joseph Scrimshaw, and they have their own podcast, the Force Center Pod. Those guys, and I see a lot of myself in Ken because we're like the same age. We're both grumpy old dudes. And listening to them talk, and I don't know how I found them. I'm thankful I did, because at first I was listening to some of the bigger YouTubers, and they were just spewing. I actually got into a fight with one of them at Chicago, and I asked him why he was even at Star Wars Celebration, because he doesn't do anything but hate, and he had no answer for me. So, but yeah, I don't think I ever felt any pressure for it, but you got to find the right thing. And I think that's kind of comes back around to what Lesyle Hedland was saying too. Like, she talks about if you are a follower of this streamer or a patron of that person, their message is what you're hearing, and you don't think for yourself. Fortunately for myself, I've always thought for myself. I've never let other people influence me. I've taken their ideas and thought, okay, like that makes sense. How does that fit into the way I feel? And that's kind of how my slow transition to having respect for the prequels. I do believe that they're Star Wars now. Do I love them? No. Is there parts of them that I love? Yes. So
I feel like that's balance, though, isn't it? And also, like Leslie Hedland is absolutely correct, and I actually think what she's saying kind of does apply to even when the Phantom Menace came out. Like, that was the early days of the internet. didn't have social media like Facebook and things like that. Everything was done on forums. Everything was like MySpace, and I mean MySpace wasn't even until like the 2000s. Like it was all forums. People would make a Star Wars forum. People would make a forum specifically to discuss like the trailer for the Phantom Menace, and people would somehow manage to get it into video format on their computer. I'm a big Weird Al Yankovic fan. I don't know if that's surprising to anybody, but I am.
Not
And
at all.
I remember one of the first songs of his I ever listened to was "The Saga Begins," which is set to the tune of American Pie.
That was nuts.
You know, if people don't know this, so this was recorded in April of 1999, and The Phantom Menace, the actual film, came out in May. So, and that song is almost entirely 100% accurate to the plot of the film. In fact, it spoiled the plot of the film for a lot of people who hadn't seen it because it was released just a month after The Phantom Menace came out into theaters. That entire song and the entire, I think, 7.5 something minutes of it, because he does the entire of American Pie, was written entirely using predictions and information gathered from these internet forums, people breaking the trailer down, people finding the toys, people finding like old school internet sleuthing. And it just, to me, that particular song represents the entirety of kind of the energy of the prequel eras. Like there's something about it that's so incredible to me.
Yeah, that it still blows my mind. I had thought that he had been given the script. Like I thought that was like, you know, hey, here's what's going to happen. Make a fun song. Because I mean, he was pretty popular at the time. Like his spoofs on things, not always well received by certain artists, but for the most part, you know, people just took him for what they were. It was funny. You kind of waited to see what he was going to do with it, you know, and yeah, it blows my mind that they were able to do that just from, you know, they weren't super smart about, you know, I think the soundtrack, it was like Qui-Gon's death or something like that, or Qui-Gon's funeral. So many people who do that, you know, to do what we do now back then was so much harder, and it could be all that you did. Like those people who did that, I mean, they're obsessed with Star Wars because it's easy. It's at our fingertips right now. You had to do some digging, and using the internet back then was painstaking process. I mean, you would, yeah. So it's bonkers to me that they nailed that, and I'm glad I didn't know about these forums. I'm glad I didn't know about it because I don't know if I'd ever gotten out of the hatefulness if I had been if I had surrounded myself with people that were like-minded. I'm afraid that I could have just very easily been one of those bullies who said mean things about people, and just, I'm not going to sit there and lie to people and say, well, no, I would never have done that. I probably could have.
I think it was very much the beginning of that, people building themselves echo chambers where all they're hearing are the same negative opinions that they're spitting out, and other people are just spitting them back again. And obviously, like you said, like websites created directly to harass people, that's something that still happens now. And obviously it'll be like Facebook pages and call out pages on Instagram and all of this sort of stuff. Like it still happens, but it kind of began back then, and all because some people didn't like a film. And I think that's why I hid my Star Wars fandom for a long time, because I realized very, very, very quickly that if I liked the prequels, and I said that I liked the prequels, and I liked Jar Jar, and I liked Anakin, and I liked all of this, I was even more of a social outcast than I already was in school and outside circles. And like my mum loves The Phantom Menace because she watched it with me all of those times. So her and I got to talk about it, and that was kind of it. And then I discovered the internet in about 2012 when I had access to my own computer and my own internet connection. And then I found Tumblr. And then I found the fan communities of people who did love the prequels and did love Anakin like Skywalker, and loved Jar Jar Binks and Ahmed Best and Hayden Christensen, and he doesn't deserve all of this hate. And I was so lucky to be there at the start of the renaissance for the prequels and the start of this kind of love, which ultimately I think culminated in Hayden Christensen stepping out on the stage. It was either London or Anaheim. It was one of them. And just Anaheim.
Because I was in line.
And just
Amy.
That was the point of it, really.
Yeah. I was in line to meet Amy. Oh, gosh, I can't think of her last name. Ayla Sakura. And all of a sudden, this eruption happened. And I was like, what the hell? And I just turned around and ran out of line and to see what was going on at the live stage. And Hayden Christensen, man, he's just like, he just stood there and people were just going nuts for him.
Yeah.
So it was pretty cool to see and to witness. But
think-
yeah, I mean, if you watch the behind the scenes or the making of, George says in those that, in 20 years from now, people are going to love these movies. Like, I mean, he comes out and he says that, like, in those things. And I mean, that's in the 90s and early 2000s. He says in 20 years or so, people are going to love these. So
I do think that's the way, although you can't really say that's the way of Star Wars, because when the original trilogy came out, it blew people's minds. It was a kind of a universally like adored and obsessed over, but it was so different at the time. It was so different.
I think Star Wars was, but Empire Strikes Back started the split. People arguing and fighting, and then because people
Interesting.
thought, I think for me now, I wasn't that old, but from what I know is like, I mean, I remember leaving the Return of the Jedi, my dad just laughing and having fun and really enjoying it. I think, and then, but Empire kind of started the split because people were mad about how happy and go lucky this phenomenon that was Star Wars. This one did not. Now it's considered like the greatest Star Wars possibly by a lot of people because it's the risk it's so. But at the time, people were not happy because movies didn't end that way. They didn't end they didn't end with the good guys losing. They didn't end, and so yeah, I think Star Wars gets a free pass because it was brand new and no one had ever seen anything like that. But also have to remember too, though, through this and the sequels, we were not bombarded with social media. We did not have a blockbuster coming out every week. So people could stop and they could focus on things more. Now it's like a blockbuster comes out, you don't like it. Well, next week, go see the next one. Like this was not happening in the early 2000s. Definitely wasn't happening in the 80s. Like you'd have these tentpole movies and they would stay in the theater for weeks and months. Now, if a movie doesn't hit, it's out of the theater in less than a month. It's on streaming already. So I think people were able to focus a little bit harder on these things than they can now. Now, granted, there's still people out there who are very focused on Star Wars, obviously, because people are listening and watching Star Wars podcasts, and we're doing a Star Wars podcast, but not to the level I think that you could have done in the 90s because just that much stuff was not coming out. And so I think that hurt the sequels or the prequels a little bit because people could just focus on them for 3 years and just bash them.
I think that became more of the thing than the films did. I feel like the films ended up taking a backseat for a long time because it was just, well, do you hate them or do you not hate them? And if you don't hate them, you're stupid.
Yeah.
And as a sequels lover, it's the second time in my life I've heard that rhetoric of, if you like it, you're stupid. If you like that. And it was frustrating to see it kind of run around again. But I feel like the sequels, again, they're having their time. They're having their moment of kind of rejuvenation and re-enjoyment, especially with all of this Ben Solo stuff. So ultimately, Star Wars is just a cycle that repeats itself. And I'm kind of okay with that. I'm happy to take the bad with the good. Obviously, not at the expense of people's lives, well-beings, and like mental health, obviously, because let's not be horrible, awful people.
Yeah. In the long run, too, people just need to realize it's a film. It's a people are like, well, this isn't the story we wanted or needed. I'm like, we don't need any of it. We don't need Star Wars. We want Star Wars. We love Star Wars. But like I remember when Solo came out and all the we don't need that story. We don't need any of these stories. Any story we get, we're blessed to have. And people need to just chill out, enjoy what comes to us, and take it, find the good in it. I had this conversation with my nephew this summer. He's bashing something. I'm like, why don't you just find what you do like about it? Or if you really hate it that much, don't worry about it. Just move on to something else. Like, why waste the energy? Why waste your time? So
Exactly. I feel like we sort of just discussed this anyway, but I'm just going to ask one more little question. What is one thing you wish fans in the early 2000s had appreciated more about the prequels?
That's a tough one. What I wish they'd appreciated. the people that made them. I feel like the respect that goes to Phil Tippett's and the Doug Chang's and things. I love that now that those people are doing signatures and signings and stuff like that. And then again, I'm also talking about All My Best and Jake Lloyd and Hayden Christensen. Like, understand that, and I think that the country was learning, because social media and internet, that was pretty new stuff,
Yeah.
and it connected you to a lot of people who could think like you. And so I think, I wish that was the biggest thing, the biggest takeaway. And I don't know if some of us have learned it. Some of us have moved on and been like, oh yeah, it's not the actor. But yeah, I wish people would have appreciated more so the people behind the scenes and the people that were making Star Wars, and remember that they are people first. They're just actors. And because I mean, that's hard, the CGI and all this stuff and the storyline and whatever, like, you're gonna have that about anything. You know what I mean? Like, that's always going to be debated. I mean, we're going to debate that the sequels, the disconnection between the sequels and things, and there's nothing we can do to change it. They're not going to retcon it, despite what some people want. So I just feel like I wish that people had, myself included, just appreciated the people and appreciated that George wanted to do this. He didn't have to. He was set. He had ILM, he had THX. I mean, the guy was making money hand over fist. He did not have to do this. And now, looking back on them, they're good movies. There's great parts to them. I'm glad he did them.
I think ultimately I wouldn't say it's about things that they'd appreciated more. I wish the fans initially who'd seen it had been more grateful. Like, what I would have given to have been like a fully conscious human being at that time. Like, I was too young to go to the cinema. I think the first film I saw in the cinema was Tarzan when I was about 6. Like, I was too little for Star Wars at the cinema. And even though I came to it later, it brought me such immense joy because I was so separated from all of the negativity about it. And I could appreciate how much had gone into it, and the people who did the editing and the animation. Thank you for mentioning Phil Tippett, by the way. Not enough people do. Not enough people know what an incredible man and creative he is. I'm very lucky to have a couple of his books on our shelves over here. Sensei, thank you, genuinely. It makes me very happy. Just be more grateful for, like you said, George didn't have to do any of this. He wanted to because he had an idea in his head that he needed to finish, like the story hadn't been finished. That was what was driving him. It wasn't service for us. It wasn't to make us happy. It was an idea, and also a bit of a merchandising plug, but we won't go into that.
Well, yeah, I mean, he knows what he's doing. I mean,
can't knock him.
That's how he made all his money in the first place, was through Kenner. I mean, he got all those rights, and he revolutionized toys and movies and merchandising. So the guy knew what was up.
No, absolutely, he did. I'm so glad that you grew at the same, like you were growing kind of like mentally and maturing at the same time your opinions about Star Wars were changing. And I'm so glad you were able to recognize how those opinions didn't serve you initially. And that, yes, you can dislike parts of something, but you can also like parts of something. I think it took me a long time to learn that two things can be true at the same time.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, yeah, and I think people struggle with that. You don't, I mean, like Attack of the Clones, I don't want to keep picking on that movie, but like the love scenes in that, or not the love scenes, but like the love dialogue, the
pair.
Yeah, the pair, like, but we dive more into the stories. Why is he so angry now? And I think that kind of stuff was missing. Like why is he this way? Stuff like that. But I can also say that when Yoda opens up his robe and he puts his hand out and that lightsaber flies to his hand, I mean, I about jumped out of my skin. That still might be one of the coolest things I've ever seen in Star Wars. Just such a little badass, like the sheriff walking in with the six shooter on his hip. You know what I mean? It's like just, and and that's from a movie that I didn't generally love that much, but there are parts of it that are really, really cool. So
I just love him. I just love them to absolute pieces. I don't know what else to say. I feel like I could make an entire video that's just me sat in front of the camera just for like 2 hours talking about why I love them all so much. It opened up a whole new world for me, a whole new world. Obviously, I was aware of Star Trek and I'd watched a bit of Star Trek, but there was something about the Phantom. I don't know if it was the CG. I don't know if it was the characters. I can't even really remember what it was. No, I do. I tell a lie. I do know what it was. It was Darth Maul.
He was special.
Hands
And then
down,
having
the coolest thing I'd ever seen with my own eyes.
And I think that's another thing that upset people is you had this cool villain. Like we've never seen anything like him. It was like, is this the next Darth Vader? Like this is going to be the bad guy. And then he gets cut down. You're like, oh, but people, and I complain about people not being patient with the television shows and things like that. People weren't, I know they didn't have any plan to bring him back like we've gotten, fortunately, but people didn't know if he was, what was, I mean, again, he was cut in half and I mean, that looked like it was the end of him, but people were pretty upset about that. Like you had this really cool villain. We'd never seen anything like it. And you get someone like Ray Parks to play the character. I wonder how they feel about that now, but yeah. So, but yeah, I think that upset people a little bit too. People just didn't appreciate like how cool that scene is. He's pointing to the things and jumping around like a crazy person, just appreciating what he was capable of and what he was bringing to the big screen.
Oh my goodness, Jimmy, I really feel like I could talk to you about this for another 20 hours. I really could.
This last question you have, if you could go back and tell your younger self one thing about the prequels, what would it be? Not to be a jerk. Just appreciate the things. Like I said, I like that question. That, in 20 years, you're going to love them. Or at least appreciate them. I wouldn't say love them. Appreciate them.
Appreciate them for what they are. I would go back and tell myself that one day you will find friends who love you for all of your Star Wars opinions.
Absolutely.
And it is okay to be loud and proud about the things that you love and enjoy, especially when it comes to Star Wars, because I think knowing that eventually everyone else is going to catch up makes me happy.
Yeah. No, that's a good thing too about Star Wars is, we talked about all the hate groups and things like that, but they're also the reason I'm doing a positive Star Wars podcast, and I got to meet you and Jack and Taylor, and obviously I knew Mike, but I reconnected Mike and I getting to do this stuff. So Star Wars has so many positives that to let something little like some cheesy dialogue in Attack of the Clones ruin Star Wars for me is ridiculous. So, but anyways, exactly. I think, yeah. So I get it. I'm glad that we've all found each other through Star Wars, which is pretty cool. So. And of course, if you're listening to us, you found us because of Star Wars too. All right. So listeners and viewers, if you have any questions or just want your voice heard, then DM us on our socials or send us an email or voice note at exploretheforce@gmail.com. Remember to like this episode, share it with your Star Wars friends and family, to follow us on all of our social media platforms. All you have to do is search Explore the Force, all one word. And if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Email us about your experience with the prequels. I'd love to hear it.
Please do. I think I'm going to try and do a little video on our YouTube this week because we've had so many responses from fans and from listeners and from my friends, and I'd really, really like to try and share all of them and just chat about them a little bit. So I'll turn that into a little extra video for this week because we are running over as per usual. Also, if you want to show your support and spread the word around by image as well as voice, then head on over to Redbubble, search Explore the Force, and you can purchase unique merchandise. And a massive, massive thank you to everyone who's been interacting with us via our social media. You keep this podcast amazing.
Yes, finally, you've been listening to or watching Explore the Force. We have spoken. We'll see you next week.